Hello and welcome to today's serving of Law and Ordinary People. Remember, this is general legal advice, and if you want legal advice that you're going to rely on, you should speak to a solicitor about your specific problems. So today's question comes from Declan, who says, I've been with my girlfriend for years and we had a baby 3 years ago. She always drank a lot, but now it's gone out of control. I told her to go and leave the baby, except of course it's probably a toddler by now, Declan, but she won't. She says she has the right to half of my house because of cohabitants' rights. Apparently it's a new law. Is it, and what is it? Okay, Declan, I'm really sorry to hear about your situation because it's a really tough place to be in right now. She's not exactly right that she'd get half of your house, but she is right. She's right in a way that she'd have the right to apply for something. That's a lot of rights. Under the Civil Partnership and Certain Rights and Obligations of Cohabitants Act, which was brought in about 2 years ago, it's quite the name, a redress scheme has been introduced for people who are called qualified cohabitants. So that means that you have the right to go to court to look for certain things off of the other person if ye separate or the relationship ends for some reason. However, firstly, you have to establish that you were a cohabitant for the purposes of the legislation. So a cohabitant means that you were not married to each other or in a registered civil partnership, that you were not within the prohibited degrees of relationship, so basically that you weren't family, and that you weren't living together, or say that you were living together in an intimate and committed relationship. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you were the best couple in the world, but it does mean that you were, boyfriend, girlfriend sort of territory for a period of time. Then you have to establish that you're a qualified cohabitant, which is one step more than cohabitant. So in order to be a qualified cohabitant, you have to be a cohabitant for 5 whole years. So all those 3 things for 5 years, or all those 3 things for 2 years if you have a baby. So that's the shorter one, and that's the thing that will get your girlfriend to be included as a qualified cohabitant. So the benefit of being a qualified cohabitant is that you have the right to go to the court to apply to have orders made for you. So like pension adjustment orders, property adjustment orders, and like attachment of earnings to like pay you for the things that the court says you should be entitled to, like maintenance and things. So it's really, really massive. It's huge. It will mean that you might have the right to be supported. And say like you could have been this girl could have been living with you for years and she gave up her job and things because you said, oh, stay at home with the baby. So she's entitled to, look for something from you. Of course, it'll all come down to what a judge decides on the day, and maybe that's not true, and that's what the function of the court is. The court takes into consideration things like the financial circumstances of each of you, the rights of others, like if you've got former spouses and if you've got kids and things, the duration and the nature of the relationship, because there's a big difference between a couple who are together for 30 years and a couple who are together for like 2 years with a kid, or 4 years and no responsibility. The contribution made by each, financial and other, because like your girlfriend could have been pumping money into your house, or like bought couches, or bought the TV, or all these sort of things are taken into consideration. Such orders then as the court may consider appropriate. That's just common sense. It'll take a judge to hammer it out and to get to an agreement, unless you can work out an agreement between yourselves, which is by far the cheapest and the happiest way of doing things. Because if you go into court versus each other, you will hate each other by the end of it. So all in all, it's not a right to half of anything, but it is a right to apply to court for lots of things. Interestingly, as a side point, you could always like pre-decide, before you break down, you could decide in advance to make an agreement of what would happen if your relationship breaks down and things. It's not really in fashion in Ireland. Lots of people don't do it, but I wish to God more people would do it, because the court will take it into consideration. And if you've got a farm or something, it's so important for people to start doing. So just think about that. And I'm sorry that I haven't got better news for you. Honestly, realistically, the best thing you can do is try and work it out. And if you can't, try and come to an agreement on what you're going to do about your child and about the property. If you've got any questions you want to send in, submit them to breetheffernan@fectv.com, or you can send them to us through our Facebook page or our Twitter.